My name is Myra Goodwin, and I am 32 years old. 3 years ago, my father looked my pregnant sister in the eye and said 6 words that broke our family apart. "You are no daughter of mine." My mother opened the front door and pointed at the driveway, and I stood there, watching my 23-year-old sister walk out into the rain with nothing but a backpack and an ultrasound photo. I took her in that same night. For 3 years, I worked double shifts, changed diapers at 2 in the morning, and watched my sister rebuild herself from nothing. My parents never called. Not once. But what happened at my nephew's 3rd birthday party, what my parents discovered about who his father really was, that is something nobody in our family will ever forget. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, where people face impossible choices and find the strength to stand their ground. And if you are new here, this channel is all about family stories that test your limits and restore your faith. Drop a comment with your thoughts as you listen, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a story. Josie called me at 11:14 on a Wednesday night. Rain hammered the gutters outside my apartment. Her voice came through in pieces, broken by static and something worse. Crying. The kind of crying that sounds like it has been going on for hours. I opened the front door before she finished her sentence. She was standing on the porch, soaked through, holding a backpack in one hand and an ultrasound photo in the other. Her mascara had run in 2 dark streaks down her cheeks. She looked like a person who had just been told she no longer existed. I did not ask what happened. I pulled her inside. I got a towel from the bathroom. I put the kettle on. Some things do not need questions. They need warmth and a locked door. She sat on my couch and pressed the ultrasound photo flat against her knee. Her hands were shaking. "Dad said I am not his daughter anymore." Mom opened the door and told me to get out. I looked at my sister, 23 years old, 17 weeks pregnant, sitting on my secondhand couch in wet jeans, holding a grainy black and white image of a baby the size of a pear. I had seen my parents be strict. I had seen them be cold after report cards and missed curfews, and the time Josie dyed her hair blue in 11th grade. But I had never seen them throw away their own child. "You are staying here," I said. That was not a question either. She nodded. She did not thank me. She did not need to. We were sisters, and sisters do not keep score when the house is on fire. What I did not know yet was that the reason behind my sister's silence about the father would turn out to be the very thing that would bring our parents to their knees. And she had not even told me the hardest part yet. The Goodwin family had a reputation in our town, and my mother guarded it the way other people guard jewelry. We were members of Grace Fellowship Church. We sat in the 3rd pew from the front, left side, every Sunday for 26 years. My father, Frank, served as a deacon. My mother, Deborah, chaired the women's ministry. We brought casseroles to funerals and showed up at every potluck with matching Tupperware. The pastor of Grace Fellowship was a man named Greg Harmon, 63 years old, silver hair, firm handshake. He had led the congregation for a quarter century, and most people in town trusted his voice more than their own instincts. His son, Ethan, was everything a church family could want. Eagle Scout, engineering scholarship, studying abroad in Germany at a top university, the golden boy who did everything right and never caused a headline. My family had 2 daughters. I was the responsible one, degree in physical therapy. Student loans paid down to the last $4,000. Quiet, reliable, invisible. Josie was the other kind, creative, warm, impulsive. She struggled through her first year of college, changed her major twice, and laughed louder than anyone in the room. Our mother called her the project. There was an unspoken rule in the Goodwin house, and it sat at the center of every decision we ever made. Appearance over truth. Image over feeling. My mother had a phrase she used when one of us got too loud or too honest or too real. "People are watching, Myra. People always watch." Josie had been dating someone in secret for over a year. She never told me. She never told anyone. And the reason she kept it hidden had everything to do with whose son he was. It happened at Sunday dinner, 2 weeks before the night Josie showed up at my door. All of us were there. Frank at the head of the table, Deborah opposite him, me on one side, Josie on the other. Aunt Carol and Uncle Pete rounded out the corners, drinking sweet tea and pretending everything was fine. Josie set her fork down between the mashed potatoes and the roast. She took a breath. I need to tell you something. The table went quiet. I could hear the kitchen clock ticking. I am pregnant. My father stood up so fast his chair hit the wall behind him. His face turned the color of raw steak. You are no daughter of mine. Just like that. No pause. No question. No who or when or are you okay? Just 5 words and a chair slamming into drywall. My mother's reaction was slower, which made it worse. She folded her napkin. She placed it next to her plate. She stood. And she walked to the front door, opened it, and pointed at the driveway. Get out of my house. Josie looked at me. I looked at our mother. Mom. She is your daughter. Not anymore. Aunt Carol whispered something to Uncle Pete. I could see her eyes already cataloging details for later distribution. My mother reached across the table, took the pearl earrings from Josie's ears, a family heirloom passed down through 3 generations, and said, "These are for Goodwin women who know how to behave." I grabbed my coat. I grabbed my sister. We walked out past the casserole dish sitting on the counter, untouched and perfectly presented while the family fell apart around it. I did not know it at the time, but walking out of that house with my sister was the last time I would speak to my parents for 2 years. My mother called at 7:15 the next morning. Her voice was controlled, rehearsed. Bring her back to apologize and we can talk about this like adults. I was standing in my kitchen, making oatmeal for Josie, who was still asleep on the couch with her shoes on. She has nothing to apologize for. Silence on the line, then. If you take her side, do not expect us to help you either. No money, no Thanksgiving, no nothing. Then I guess we will figure it out. I hung up. I sat down at the kitchen table. I pulled up my bank account on my phone. $14,211. That was what stood between us and disaster. I ran the numbers. Rent, groceries, prenatal vitamins, copays, diapers eventually. $14,000 would last 8 months if we were careful. Maybe 9. I called my supervisor at the hospital, asked for additional shifts. Tuesdays and Saturdays on top of my regular schedule. She said yes without asking why. Good supervisors do that. That evening, my father sent a text. Just to me. Talk some sense into your sister. I read it 3 times. Then I typed back. Talk some sense into your wife. He never responded. Not that night. Not ever. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the ceiling. My savings were thin. My schedule was about to double. My social life, which was already small, was about to disappear entirely. And the sister sleeping on my couch had not yet told me who the father of her baby was. I was not choosing between my sister and my parents. My parents had already made that choice for all of us. I was just the one who refused to pretend it did not happen. The first 3 months were the hardest kind of quiet. Josie dealt with morning sickness by keeping a sleeve of crackers next to the couch. I dealt with exhaustion by drinking coffee that got stronger by the week. We did not talk about our parents. We did not talk about the father. We talked about grocery lists and doctor appointments and whether we could afford the name brand prenatal vitamins or had to settle for generic. The town talked for us. I ran into Margaret Patterson at the grocery store on a Thursday afternoon. She was a longtime member of Grace Fellowship, and she had known our family since I was in diapers. She saw Josie's belly from 30 feet away. She turned her cart around and walked in the other direction without a word. 2 weeks later, Aunt Carol showed up at my apartment with a white ceramic casserole dish in her hands, chipped rim, my mother's signature vessel. From your mother. She still loves you girls. Inside was tuna casserole, seasoned with exactly the right amount of dill and exactly the wrong amount of concern. Carol stayed for 45 minutes. She complimented my curtains. She asked how Josie was holding up. She wanted to know if there was a man in the picture. I told her Josie was fine. I told her we did not need anything. I walked her to the door. She reported back to my mother that night. Josie was showing. No ring. No man around. My mother's response, relayed through the family grapevine. She made her bed. I put the casserole in the refrigerator. I did not eat it. I did not throw it away. It sat on the middle shelf for 9 days before I scraped it into the trash. What Aunt Carol did not mention in her report because she did not think to ask was the name of the father, Arthur. And if she had, everything would have unfolded very differently. I heard about the sermon from Dr. Patrice Coleman, my colleague at the hospital. Patrice was 50 years old, a physical therapist like me, and the only person in town who never spoke about other people's business unless it mattered. She found me in the break room on a Monday morning and closed the door behind her. You need to know what happened at Grace Fellowship yesterday. Pastor Greg Harmon had stood at the pulpit and delivered what the congregation would later call a teaching moment. He used a hypothetical, a young woman, a family, a pregnancy that brought shame. He never said Josie's name. He did not have to. Every person in that sanctuary knew exactly who he was talking about. When a young woman strays from the path her family has laid out for her, he had said, the consequences ripple through generations. My mother sat in the front pew and nodded. Patrice told me she walked out. She was the only one. I stood up, picked up my purse and walked straight out the side door. Nobody followed me. I listened to every word. I did not cry. I did not call the church. I did not write a letter. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Then I went back to work. That evening, I picked up Josie's phone to plug it in for her while she napped. The screen lit up with a notification, a contact saved as just E, message preview before the screen locked. I think about him every day. I put the phone down. I did not unlock it. But I filed that letter away in the part of my brain that catalogs things I am not supposed to know yet. Patrice had said something that stayed with me. Greg Harmon has been standing on that pulpit for 25 years. I wonder how many people he has judged while his own house was not in order. I did not understand what she meant. Not then. But I would. Josie was 32 weeks along when her blood pressure spiked. I came home from a Saturday shift and found her sitting on the bathroom floor, holding the edge of the sink with both hands. Her face was flushed. Her breathing was shallow. I checked her pulse. Then I checked it again. 158/98. I am a physical therapist, not an obstetrician, but I know what those numbers mean when a woman is 8 months pregnant. They mean get in the car right now. I drove 12 minutes to the emergency room. Josie gripped the dashboard the entire way. Neither of us spoke. The only sound was the rain on the windshield and the turn signal clicking at every intersection. The doctor on duty stabilized her within 2 hours. Gestational hypertension. Not preeclampsia, not yet, but close enough to scare everyone in the room. The orders were clear. Bed rest. Weekly monitoring. No more part-time shifts at the diner where she had been working 3 days a week. That meant I was now the only income. No backup. No safety net. No casserole dish showing up with a check inside. I sat in the hallway outside Josie's room and pulled out my phone. I typed a message to my mother. Josie is in the hospital. Blood pressure complications. I hit send. The message was read at 9:41 in the evening. I watched the little blue checkmark appear beneath the text. Read. No reply. Not a question. Not a prayer emoji. Not a single word. I stared at that checkmark for 5 minutes. My mother had read that her pregnant daughter was in the hospital and chose to say nothing. The baby came 6 weeks later, and when he did, there was only one person in that delivery room holding my sister's hand. Me. If you have ever been the person your family called when things fell apart, and then watched those same people pretend you do not exist, this story might feel personal. Stay with me, because what happens next changed everything for my sister, for me, and for the family that threw us away. Drop a like if you are still here. Micah James Goodwin was born on a Tuesday morning at 6:47. 6 pounds, 11 ounces, healthy lungs, a full head of curly brown hair that did not come from our side of the family. Josie held him against her chest and cried the kind of tears that belong to someone who has been afraid for a very long time and has finally been given a reason to stop. I stood beside the bed and watched my sister become a mother in a room with no flowers, no family photos propped on the windowsill, no father pacing the hallway. The nurse asked me to fill out some paperwork. She got to the emergency contact section and paused. "Who should we list besides you?" "Just me." She looked up. She did not ask a follow-up question. She just wrote my name in both lines. Dr. Patrice stopped by after her shift with a stuffed bear she bought from the gift shop downstairs. She held Micah for 3 minutes and said, "He has good hands. Strong grip." I walked down to the hospital gift shop and bought the softest blanket they had. Yellow. $12. It was not much, but it was the first thing I ever bought for my nephew. And it mattered. That evening, Josie sat propped up in the hospital bed with Micah asleep on her chest. She looked at me and said, "I am so sorry he does not have more people." I pulled the chair closer to the bed. "He has us. That is enough." She asked me not to post anything on social media. "Please, I do not want them to know." The way she said "them" told me she was not just talking about our parents. There was someone else she was keeping Micah from. Someone specific. The first year moved in a blur of formula and exhaustion and small, ordinary miracles. Micah smiled for the first time at 8 weeks, a gummy, lopsided grin that made Josie laugh so hard she spilled her coffee. His first tooth came in at 5 months. His first word was my, which was his version of Myra, and I am not ashamed to say I cried in the kitchen when he said it. Josie passed her CNA exam in the spring. She started working 3 days a week at Meadowbrook, the nursing home on the east side of town. We split childcare like a math equation. I took mornings. She took evenings. Weekends we traded off based on whoever had slept more the night before, which was usually neither of us. My supervisor at the hospital offered me a promotion in September. Lead physical therapist at a larger facility 90 minutes north. Better pay. Better title. Better everything except the part where I would have to leave Josie and Micah behind. I said no. I told her I was not available right now. She did not push. A colleague named Derek asked me out for dinner the following week. I told him the same thing. He did not ask again. By December, my savings had dropped from $14,000 to $3,200, but we were managing. The math was tight, but it worked. Josie covered groceries. I covered rent and daycare. We split utilities down the middle. Thanksgiving was just the 3 of us. Josie roasted a small turkey. Micah sat in a high chair smearing sweet potatoes across his face. It was the quietest Thanksgiving I had ever had, and somehow, the fullest. Josie still had not told me who Micah's father was. I did not push. But in the spring, I found something that told me everything. Something shifted around Micah's first birthday, and it happened so quietly I almost missed it. People in town started talking differently. At the hospital, Mrs. Garza, one of my regular patients, asked me about the baby while I worked on her shoulder. "I heard your sister is over at Meadowbrook. My aunt says she is wonderful with the residents." She paused. "And I heard what happened with your parents. I just want you to know, not everyone agrees with what they did." Dr. Patrice noticed it too. She pulled me aside after a staff meeting and said, "The narrative is shifting. People see you working doubles and raising that child. They see your parents sitting in church acting like nothing happened. The math is not adding up for people anymore." At the coffee shop on Main Street, the barista handed me my latte and said, "Your sister is one of the best CNAs at Meadowbrook. My grandmother absolutely loves her. Tell Josie I said thank you." I drove home that day thinking about something Patrice had told me. Image only holds if nobody checks the receipts. My father was starting to feel it. At the hardware store, an old friend from the Rotary Club clapped him on the shoulder and asked, "How is your grandbaby doing, Frank?" My father froze, changed the subject, talked about the weather for 6 minutes straight. My mother felt it at the church potluck. A new family had joined Grace Fellowship, and the wife, friendly, unaware of the history, asked brightly, "Oh, I did not know you had 2 daughters. Where is the other one?" My mother's smile cracked down the center like a plate dropped on tile. I ran into Pastor Greg at the grocery store. He nodded. I nodded back. No words, but I noticed his hands were shaking as he gripped his shopping cart. Micah was 14 months old when I started noticing things I could not explain. His hair had thickened into tight brown curls that bounced when he walked. His jawline was starting to define itself, square and determined in a way that looked nothing like any Goodwin I had ever met. We are fair-haired people, sandy blonde, thin features. Josie and I both took after our mother in that regard. But Micah's face belonged to someone else entirely, someone with dark curls and a wide, confident jaw. I kept the thought to myself. It was not my business to pry. Josie would tell me when she was ready. But then, there was the phone. One night, while Josie was giving Micah a bath, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. The screen lit up. A contact saved as E. The message preview showed 6 words before the screen locked. I think about him every day. I turn the phone face down. I did not unlock it. I did not read the rest. The next morning, Josie was quieter than usual. She poured her coffee without speaking and sat across from me at the kitchen table while Micah played with plastic blocks on the floor. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Always. Do you think a person can love someone and still keep them away because telling them would ruin their life?" I set my mug down. I looked at my sister's face. She was not asking a hypothetical. She was asking for permission. "I think that depends on whose life you are really trying to protect," I said. "Theirs or yours?" She went quiet. She picked up Micah and carried him to his room. She did not bring it up again. 2 months later, I found the answer to that question in my sister's nightstand drawer. It was a Wednesday afternoon in April. Josie was at work. Micah was at daycare. I was putting away laundry in her room when the nightstand drawer stuck. I pulled harder. It jerked open, and something slid forward from underneath a stack of old receipts. A letter. Handwritten. Blue ink on white paper, 3 pages folded together so many times the creases had gone nearly transparent. The edges were soft with handling, as if someone had opened and closed it dozens of times. My hand started shaking before I read the first word. I knew I should not read it. I knew it was not mine. I read it anyway. "Dear Ethan," 2 words, and the entire floor shifted beneath me. "Dear Ethan, I know you are in Germany, and I know your father told you not to contact me. I know you think I moved on. I did not move on. I am 17 weeks pregnant, and the baby is yours." I sat down on the edge of Josie's bed. The room was very quiet. I could hear the washing machine running in the next room, a low mechanical hum that had nothing to do with the earthquake happening inside my chest. Ethan Harmon, Pastor Greg Harmon's son. The letter continued. "I am not going to send this letter because if I do, you will come home. And if you come home, your father will know. And if your father knows, he will destroy you the way my parents destroyed me." 3 pages, blue ink, creased and refolded until the paper felt like cloth. My sister had written her baby's father's name 60 times and never put a stamp on the envelope. I put the letter back exactly where I found it. I closed the drawer. I sat on the edge of my sister's bed for a long time, and then I knew exactly what I had to do. That evening, Micah was asleep. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft tick of the wall clock in the living room. I sat across from Josie at the kitchen table with 2 cups of tea between us. "I found the letter," I said, "the one to Ethan Harmon." The color left her face like water draining from a sink. White, then red. Then the kind of expression that comes when a secret you have been carrying for 18 months is suddenly sitting in the open air. "Myra, I can explain." "You do not have to explain. You have to tell me the truth." And she did. All of it. Josie and Ethan had been together since her sophomore year of college. Secret, deliberate, hidden from both families because they knew what would happen if anyone found out. Pastor Greg had warned Ethan against dating her. "The Goodwin girl is trouble. She is not serious enough for you." When Ethan received the engineering scholarship to study in Munich, Pastor Greg went through his phone. deleted Josie's number, changed his contact information, told Ethan that Josie had moved on and was seeing someone else. A clean, efficient lie. Josie discovered the pregnancy 2 months after Ethan left the country. She wrote the letter. She never sent it. Sent it. If his father finds out, he will make Ethan choose, and Ethan will choose me. And then he will lose his scholarship, his career, everything. I looked at my sister. 18 months of silence, 18 months of protecting a man who did not even know he had a son. Josie, Ethan has a son. He deserves to know. I know. Her voice cracked. I have known for 16 months. I just did not know how to undo what I had already done. The letter sat on the table between us, blue ink catching the kitchen light. I told my sister I would find him. And I meant it. I started searching the next morning. LinkedIn was the obvious first step. Ethan Harmon, structural engineer, last active 2 months prior. Employment listed at a civil engineering firm in Munich, Germany. Profile photo, a man with brown curly hair and Micah's jawline. I stared at that photo for a long time. It was like looking at my nephew 25 years from now. I wrote a message. I kept it short and factual. No drama. No guilt. Ethan, this is Myra Goodwin, Josie's sister. There is something you need to know. Please call me. 3 days passed. Nothing. I checked the message status. Read, but not responded to. I understood his hesitation. A message from an ex-girlfriend's sister after 2 years of silence is not something a person opens with enthusiasm. I tried again. This time I added one line. It is about a child. Response within 2 hours. What child? I called him that night. I told him everything. Josie, the pregnancy, the birth, Micah, his curly hair, his strong hands, the 14 months of life he had already missed. Silence on the other end of the line. I could hear traffic sounds, German traffic sounds, a world away. Then, I am coming home. Your father does not know. I do not care what my father knows. Ethan, if you come back, this town will know. Everyone will know. Good. Before we hung up, he told me something that made my hands go cold. 6 months after leaving for Germany, he had tried to contact Josie. He called his father to get her number. Pastor Greg told him Josie had moved on and was seeing someone new. My father lied to me, Ethan said. My father took my son away from me before he was even born. 6 weeks later, I picked Ethan Harmon up from the regional airport 45 minutes east of town. Josie had wanted to come. She had changed her outfit 3 times that morning and then sat on the edge of the bathtub and cried. I cannot do it. What if he hates me for keeping this from him? He flew 9 hours to be here, I said. He does not hate you. In the car, Ethan was quiet. He kept his hands on his knees and stared out the window at the flat green fields and familiar church steeples he had left behind 2 years ago. He did not look like a man coming home. He looked like a man heading into battle. What does he look like? He asked. He has your hair, I said, and your jaw. And his mother's stubbornness. He almost smiled. Almost. We pulled into the parking lot of my apartment complex. Josie was standing in the doorway with Micah on her hip. He was 20 months old. He was wearing a green shirt with a dinosaur on the front. His curly hair caught the afternoon sun. Ethan got out of the car. He stood there for a moment, looking at the doorway. Then he walked forward. Slowly at first, then faster. Micah stared at this stranger with the same hair and the same jaw and said, "Hi." Ethan knelt down. Tears fell onto the pavement. Josie knelt too. They held the baby between them, and the 3 of them made a shape I had been holding open for 18 months. I stepped back into the kitchen. I watched through the window. I cried, but I did it quietly, because that is what I do. I hold the door open, and then I step aside. Josie unfolded the crumpled letter from the nightstand drawer. Blue ink, 3 pages. She handed it to Ethan. He read the last line aloud. I named him Micah. It means who is like God, because I needed to believe someone was watching over us. The months that followed were not a fairy tale. Fairy tales skip the parts where trust has to be rebuilt from scratch. Ethan got a job at a construction firm 40 minutes south of town. He rented a small apartment near mine, close enough that Josie could walk over when she needed to, far enough that they were not pretending everything was fine when it was not. They went to couples counseling on Thursday evenings. I watched Micah those nights. There were arguments. Quiet ones, mostly. Josie was angry that Ethan had not tried harder to reach her. Ethan was angry that Josie had chosen silence instead of a phone call. Both of them were angry at Pastor Greg, but anger at a parent is a complicated kind of fire. It burns and it warms at the same time. By the third month, Micah was calling Ethan Daddy. That word did something to Ethan's posture. He stood straighter. He came over earlier. He stayed later. Josie enrolled in a nursing program at the community college. Evening classes, 3 nights a week. Ethan handled bedtime on those nights with a level of determination that bordered on military precision. Bath at 7, story at 7:30, lights out at 8. He did not deviate. I finally took my colleague Derek up on coffee. Just coffee. 35 minutes at the cafe on Elm Street. It was the first thing I had done for myself in 2 years. Micah drew his first family portrait on the back of a placemat at a diner. 3 stick figures. One tall with messy hair Myra, one with a ponytailed Josie, one very small with what appeared to be a cape Micah. No fourth figure, no grandparents, just the 3 people who had shown up. Aunt Carol ran into Josie and Ethan at the grocery store the following week. Josie did not introduce him. Carol stared at his curly hair all the way to the checkout line. Micah's second birthday was small and exactly right. We held it in my apartment with streamers taped to the ceiling and a cake Josie made from scratch. Chocolate with blue frosting, because Micah had recently decided that blue was the only acceptable color. The guest list was short. Dr. Patrice brought a toy stethoscope. Garrett, a friend from Ethan's construction crew, brought a plastic hard hat. 2 daycare families came with their kids, and for 90 minutes the apartment sounded like a playground during a sugar rush. After the candles were blown out and the cake was demolished, Ethan knelt down in the kitchen doorway with a ring box in his hand. It was not a diamond. It was a thin silver band with a tiny sapphire, the kind of ring that says, "I found this with purpose, and not with a credit card." "I should have been here from the beginning," he said. "I am here now. And I am not leaving." Josie said yes before he finished the sentence. Dr. Patrice leaned over to me and whispered, "You built this, you know. All of this." I shook my head. Josie built it. I just held the door open. That evening, after the guests had left and the wrapping paper had been stuffed into trash bags, I noticed something new on the refrigerator. Micah had drawn an updated version of his family portrait. This one had 4 stick figures. The 4th one was tall with scribbled curly hair. He had labeled it in orange crayon with a single word, Daddy. Still no grandparents in the picture, just the 4 of us. For 2 years I had been bracing for the next disaster, and for the first time I wondered if maybe the disasters were done. They were not. 3 months before Micah's 3rd birthday, my Aunt Carol called me for the first time in over a year. A year. And the words she said made my stomach drop. If you have ever watched someone rebuild their life from nothing, you know how fragile that piece can be. And you know how fast the people who destroyed it can show up wanting credit. If you are wondering what happens when my parents come back, stay with me. And if this story is hitting close to home, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Honey, your parents miss you. That was how Aunt Carol opened the conversation. No hello, no how are you. Just 5 words dipped in syrup and served with a side of guilt. They have had my number for 2 years, Aunt Carol. Your mother cries every night, Myra. Your father cannot sleep. I leaned against the kitchen counter and closed my eyes. I am sorry to hear that. But they know where I live. They know my number. They have known both things since the night they threw Josie out. Carol pivoted. Your mother heard that Josie is doing well, that she has a nice man in her life. She wants to meet the baby. There it was. Not, she wants to apologize. Not, she realizes she was wrong. Not even she misses her daughter. She wants to meet the baby now that the scandal has a happy ending. If Mom wants to talk to us, she can call us herself, I said. She is afraid you will hang up. Then she knows exactly how Josie felt when she texted from the hospital and nobody answered. Carol went quiet for a moment. Then she dropped the real reason. People at church keep asking about the baby, Myra. Your father does not know what to say when they ask how his grandbaby is doing. I almost laughed. Almost. Tell Dad he can say the same thing he said 3 years ago, that she is no daughter of his. Problem solved. Carol hung up shortly after. I stood in the kitchen staring at the phone. The thing about silence is that it only works as punishment when the other person cares. My parents had spent 2 years not caring. Now that the story had changed, they wanted back into the narrative. I was not sure I wanted them in it. My mother showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning unannounced. She stood on the porch holding a white ceramic casserole dish in both hands. Same style, same chipped rim. My mother's hands were trembling. Her hair was grayer than I remembered, pulled back in a clip that looked like it had been put on in a hurry. She looked smaller standing on my porch than she ever had standing in her own kitchen. For 1 second, one brief, honest second, I saw my mother as a frightened woman approaching 60 who had lost both her daughters and did not know how to say so. Then she opened her mouth. I just want things to go back to normal. I want my girls back. Normal, I said. Was you throwing your daughter into the rain because she was pregnant? I was angry. Your father was angry. We said things we did not mean. You meant every word, Mom. And then you let Pastor Harmon use Josie as a sermon illustration. You sat in the front pew and nodded. Her jaw tightened. Greg was just trying to help. He cares about this family. Pastor Harmon does not care about this family. I kept my voice level. Every word measured. And when you find out why, you are going to wish you had come here sooner. She blinked. She did not understand what I meant. But the words landed somewhere, because her expression shifted from defensive to uncertain. She set the casserole dish on the counter and left without another word. I stood in the kitchen and stared at that dish. Same white ceramic. Same chipped rim. The same performance of love that never quite made it past the surface. Ethan told his father on a Tuesday afternoon. He drove to Grace Fellowship Church, parked in the visitor lot, and walked into the office where Pastor Greg Harmon had counseled families and led prayer groups for 25 years. I was not there for the conversation. Ethan told me about it afterward, sitting at my kitchen table with a glass of water he never touched. I told him everything, Ethan said. I told him Josie and I have been together since college, that Micah is my son, that he is 2.5 years old. Pastor Greg's reaction came in stages. Disbelief first. His face went slack. Then rage. He stood up from behind his desk and pointed at Ethan. You should have told me. You made sure I could not, Ethan said. You deleted her number. You told me she moved on and was seeing someone else. I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself. Greg sat down slowly. The chair creaked. He was quiet for what Ethan described as the longest minute of his life. Then he leaned forward and said, If this gets out, it will destroy this church. Ethan stood. It is not getting out, Dad. It is already out. Your grandson has been alive for over 2 years. He has your chin and my hair and Josie's laugh. He is a real person, not a scandal. Greg said nothing. Ethan walked out. He did not ask for forgiveness. He did not ask for money. He did not ask for a blessing. Just, I thought you should know. That evening, Pastor Greg Harmon called my mother. I know because Josie heard about it through Ethan. The conversation was short. Deborah, we need to talk. About Ethan and your daughter. Josie told me about the phone call the next morning. Ethan had overheard his father's side of the conversation through the thin walls of the church office. Your daughter got my son involved in this mess, Pastor Greg had said. And my mother, who had spent 3 years agreeing with every word that came out of that man's mouth, fired back for the first time. Excuse me? Your son got my daughter pregnant. If Josie had not been so reckless. Do not you dare. You stood on that pulpit and shamed her. while your son was the father the entire time. I did not know. Neither did I, because you cut off all contact. I sat at the table and listened to Josie recount the exchange. There was a strange satisfaction in hearing that my mother had turned on Pastor Greg, but it was not the kind of satisfaction that felt clean. It was the kind that comes when two people who destroyed your sister finally realize they were both holding the match. Neither of them apologized. Neither of them called Josie. Neither of them said, "We were wrong." Instead, my mother called my father. "We are going to that birthday party." Micah's third birthday was 5 weeks away. My mother had not spoken to her youngest daughter in over 2 years. She had not met her only grandchild. She had not acknowledged that Josie existed as anything other than a mistake she wanted to erase. And now she was planning to walk into her grandson's birthday party as if she had been there all along. I found out the next morning when Aunt Carol texted me a cheerful message. "Your mom is so excited for the party. What should she bring?" I did not respond for 12 hours. When I did, I called my mother directly. "I heard you want to come to Micah's birthday," I said. "He is my grandson," my mother replied. "I have a right to." "You have no rights here. You gave them up when you chose your reputation over your daughter." Silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I let the silence sit. I have learned that silence is a tool most people do not know how to use, and my mother was one of them. "If you come," I said, "you come on our terms. You do not make a scene. You do not cry and make it about yourself. You do not bring Pastor Harmon, and you do not pretend the last 2.5 years did not happen." "Fine. And Mom? Josie does not know you are coming. I will tell her. And if she says no, you do not come. No argument, no guilt, no casserole dish on the porch. If she says no, you stay home." I expected pushback. I expected tears. Instead, she just said, "I understand." I called Josie that evening. I told her our parents wanted to come to the party. I told her it was her decision and nobody else's. She was quiet for a long time. I could hear Micah in the background, babbling about trucks. Then she said, "Let them come. Let them see what they missed." I told Ethan. He nodded slowly. "My father will find out. He will show up too." "Then let him. Are you sure you want both sets of parents at a 3-year-old's birthday party?" I looked at the refrigerator, where Micah's stick figure family portrait hung next to a grocery list and an overdue electric bill. 4 figures. None of them grandparents. Let them come. Let them see who showed up when they did not. Micah's third birthday party was held in the backyard of the small house I had bought 6 months earlier. 2 bedrooms, chain-link fence, a yard just big enough for a plastic slide, and a folding table covered in a dinosaur tablecloth. I had spent the morning taping streamers to the fence posts and blowing up balloons until my cheeks hurt. Josie baked the cake chocolate with green frosting this year, because Micah had moved on from blue. Dr. Patrice arrived early with a wrapped box and a bottle of sparkling cider. Garrett from Ethan's crew showed up with a bag of water balloons. 3 daycare families filtered in with their kids, and by 2 in the afternoon, the backyard sounded like a joyful emergency. At 2:20, a sedan pulled into the driveway. My mother stepped out first. She was wearing a blouse I had not seen before, pressed and buttoned to the neck. She carried the white ceramic casserole dish in both hands, same chipped rim. She walked it to the food table and set it down next to the cupcakes and the fruit salad and a bag of cheese puffs. It sat there like a museum piece among playground snacks. My father followed. He stood at the edge of the yard with his hands in his pockets, scanning the scene the way a man scans a room when he does not know where he belongs. He looked at the small house. He looked at the decorations. He looked at the dozen guests he did not recognize. Micah ran up to me. "Auntie Mai, who are those people?" "Those are your grandparents, baby. They came to see you." He looked at them the way a child looks at strangers in line at the post office, polite, indifferent. "Oh." Then he turned and ran back to the water balloons. My mother's face when her grandson did not recognize her, that was the first crack. And then Ethan walked through the back gate. Ethan came through the gate carrying a wrapped box under one arm. Micah spotted him from across the yard and took off running, sneakers pounding the grass. "Daddy! Daddy!" He launched himself at Ethan's legs, and Ethan scooped him up with the ease of a man who had been doing this every day for the past year. My father stared. He stared the way a person stares when a piece of a puzzle they thought was missing suddenly appears in someone else's hand. "That is the Harmon boy," Frank said. His voice was barely above a whisper. "That is Pastor Harmon's son." My mother was holding a serving spoon over the casserole dish. It stopped midair. She did not move. She did not blink. She just stood there, frozen, with the spoon hovering over a dish nobody had touched. "Ethan Harmon?" my father said, louder now. "Pastor Harmon's son is the father?" "Yes," I said. My mother's voice came out cracked and dry. "How long has he been here?" "He came back a year ago. He is Micah's father. He has been Micah's father since before Josie walked out of your house in the rain." The yard went quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from awkwardness, the kind that comes when every person in a room realizes they are watching something they will talk about for years. My father stepped forward. "The pastor's boy. That is the father." His voice cracked on the last word. My mother set down the serving spoon. "How is this possible? We would have known. Someone would have told us." I looked at both of them. My mother in her pressed blouse. My father with his hands trembling at his sides. "Someone did tell you. Josie tried to tell you. She came to your dinner table and you did not let her finish a single sentence before you threw her out." Josie stepped forward. She held Ethan's hand. Micah sat on Ethan's hip, oblivious, licking frosting off his fingers. "Mom, Dad, this is Ethan, your grandson's father, the man you never let me introduce." My mother's first instinct was tears. That was always her first instinct when she was cornered. Tears and a trembling voice, and a phrase designed to flip the guilt. I had no idea. "If I had known who the father was..." "If you had known what?" I said. "That the father was respectable enough? That his last name was good enough? Would that have changed anything?" "That is not fair, Myra." "Does it? Does it change the 2 years you did not call?" She flinched. That question landed somewhere deep, in the place where excuses live before they are spoken out loud. She opened her mouth and closed it again. My father tried to recover. He straightened his spine and used the voice he used at deacon meetings when things got off track. "This changes everything. We need to sit down as a family and discuss. You said she was no daughter of yours." I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. You said those exact words. You stood up from the dinner table and told your pregnant daughter she did not exist. Does knowing who the father is suddenly make her your daughter again? He had nothing. He looked at the ground. He looked at the sky. He looked at the gate as if considering walking through it. My mother pivoted to her backup strategy, the one where she becomes the victim. "You girls do not understand what it was like for us. The whole town was talking. The church was watching. We were humiliated." Josie spoke. Her voice was quiet and steady. "You were humiliated? I gave birth in a hospital room with no family. My son did not know he had grandparents until 10 minutes ago. And you are telling me you were humiliated?" Dr. Patrice moved closer. She did not say anything. She did not need to. She was a witness, and she intended to stay one. Garrett stood behind Ethan with his arms crossed. The daycare parents held their children a little tighter. Everyone was watching. The audience my parents had always feared was finally here. A car door slammed in the driveway. Footsteps on the concrete. Pastor Greg Harmon walked through the back gate in a navy blazer and pressed khakis, the same outfit he wore to community events and hospital visits, and occasions where he needed to look like a man in charge. He surveyed the yard, the streamers, the cake, the guests. His eyes found Ethan holding Micah, and something in his posture stiffened. "Son," he said. "Let us go. This is not the place." Ethan did not move. "This is exactly the place. This is my son's birthday party. You are at your grandson's birthday party, Dad." Greg turned to my mother. "Deborah, I told you we should have handled this privately." My mother said nothing. She was still standing by the casserole dish, which no one had touched. The serving spoon lay exactly where she had set it down. I stepped forward. I kept my voice level. Every word came out the way I had been trained to deliver patient assessments. Clear. Measured. Without emotion that would distract from the facts. You preached about sin from that pulpit while your own son was in love with my sister. He just did not feel safe enough to tell you. Greg's face tightened. I did what I thought was right. You did what was easy. Shaming a 23-year-old girl from a stage is easy. Listening to your own son is hard. You chose easy. And then you deleted her number from his phone and told him she had moved on. You lied to your own child to keep him away from mine. Margaret Harmon, Greg's wife, had followed him through the gate. She stood 3 steps behind her husband. I watched her face as she processed what I had just said. She had not known. Not the deleted number. Not the lie. She looked at her husband the way you look at a stranger wearing your husband's clothes. Greg turned and walked to his car. Margaret did not follow him. She walked to Micah, knelt down on the grass, and said, "Hello, sweetheart. I am your other grandmother." The letter. The crumpled blue ink letter that Josie had never sent. She had a letter she never sent, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. 3 pages. Blue ink. She wrote your grandson's name before he was even born. While you were preaching about consequences, she was choosing to protect your son. The party did not end. The party simply changed shape. Greg's car pulled out of the driveway. The daycare kids went back to the water balloons. Someone turned the music back on, a tinny playlist from a phone speaker, and the yard slowly remembered it was supposed to be a celebration. My mother stood by the food table. Her casserole dish sat untouched next to the half-eaten cupcakes and the bag of cheese puffs. Every other dish on the table had been served from. Hers had not. My father took her arm gently. "Let us go, Deb." She did not move yet. She looked at Josie. "Can I hold him? Just once?" Josie looked at me. I nodded. Deborah picked up Micah with careful hands, as if she were handling something borrowed. Micah tolerated it for about 30 seconds. He squirmed. He reached for Josie. "Mommy." Not a plea, just a statement of fact. He wanted the person he trusted. My mother handed him back. Her eyes were red. She whispered, "He has your father's eyes." I corrected her quietly. "He has his father's eyes. Ethan's eyes." She stood there for a moment longer. Then she turned. My father walked her to the car. He opened her door. She got in. They drove away. The casserole dish stayed on the table. Nobody picked it up. After they left, Josie exhaled. It was the kind of breath that sounds like it has been held for 3 years. Ethan wrapped his arm around her. Micah smeared cake across both of their shirts. Dr. Patrice appeared beside me with 2 paper cups of sparkling cider. "You okay?" "I will be." I did not chase them to the car. I did not say we could work it out. I did not promise anything. I let them go the way they let Josie go in silence. 2 months passed. The kind of months where things settle into place not with a crash, but with a series of small, deliberate clicks. Josie and Ethan got married at the county courthouse on a Wednesday morning in October. I stood beside Josie as her witness. Dr. Patrice brought a bottle of champagne and a card that said, "About time." Micah wore a clip-on bow tie and tried to eat the pen the clerk used for signatures. Josie completed her nursing program in May. She graduated with honors, the first person in our family to earn a nursing degree. I sat in the 3rd row of the auditorium and watched my sister walk across the stage in a cap and gown she had paid for with 3 years of night shifts and grit, and a stubbornness that our mother would never understand. Ethan and Josie moved into their own apartment 3 weeks later. 2 bedrooms, 10 minutes from my house. Close enough that Micah could ride his tricycle over on weekends if the sidewalk cooperated. My father sent a card. No phone call, no visit. Just a card in a plain white envelope. Inside it said, "Thinking of you." Nothing else. No apology. No explanation. Just 2 words and a signature. I put it on the refrigerator next to the grocery list. I did not call back. My mother left Grace Fellowship's women's ministry. She joined a different Bible study group that met at a coffee shop across town. Small changes. Maybe real. Maybe performance. I could not tell yet. Pastor Greg Harmon took a leave of absence for health reasons. The congregation was told it was a sabbatical. Most people understood it was not. Margaret Harmon visited Micah every other Saturday. She brought cookies and a smile and never once mentioned her husband. She sat on the living room floor and built block towers until Micah knocked them down laughing. On the refrigerator in my kitchen, a new drawing. Still 4 stick figures. Myra, Josie, Ethan, Micah. A small 5th figure had been added in yellow crayon. "That is Grandma Margaret," Josie explained when I asked. "No Deborah. No Frank. Not yet." "Maybe someday," Josie said. "Maybe," I said. "When they earn it." It was a Saturday morning in late November. The house was quiet. Micah was at Josie's. The coffee was hot. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon from a candle I had bought myself as a small, deliberate act of self-kindness. I opened the cabinet above the stove, the one I never used because it required standing on my toes. On the top shelf, behind a box of expired tea bags, sat the white ceramic casserole dish. The first one. The one Aunt Carol had brought 2.5 years ago, from your mother. I had never returned it. Never used it. Never thrown it away. I pulled it down. Ran my thumb along the chipped rim. It was lighter than I remembered. Smaller. The kind of object that shrinks when the person behind it stops being larger than life. I put it in the donation box by the front door. I did not need it anymore. I walked back to the refrigerator and looked at Micah's latest drawing. 4 stick figures and 1 small yellow one. My stick figure had a big lopsided smile and what appeared to be a cape. Or maybe wings. It was hard to tell with crayon. I laughed. A real one. The kind that starts in your chest and works its way up through your throat and comes out sounding like relief. I was not a hero. I was a sister. And that was enough. The people who love you do not wait for you to be perfect before they show up. They show up first. Everything else, the apologies, the explanations, the understanding that comes later, if it comes at all. But the showing up is the part that matters. That is the part my parents missed. And that is the part I will never miss again. That is my story. 3 years of silence. 1 letter that changed everything. And a birthday party nobody will forget. If this reminded you to call someone who showed up for you, do it today. O'day! Share this video, drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.